Dana Denha here, and this is Let's Watch with the Ann Arbor Film Festival. Every March, our annual film festival will bring stories, visual arts, and unforgettable imagery to screens and gallery spaces throughout Ann Arbor. Artists travel from places far and wide to be part of this world-renowned celebration of film and art. Joining me is Phoebe Gloeckner and Aliyah Mitchell, directors, and Natalia Rocafuerte, assistant editor of Dreaming Angel, part of the 2024 Ann Arbor Film Festival. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Thanks for having us, Dana. Yeah.
Well, we'll just, what I'd like to do, we have more people than I normally do, so we'll just go one by one and talk about this. We'll start with Phoebe. Phoebe, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and, schooling and what led you to be a graphic novelist and a filmmaker now? And you have a renowned book, The Diary of a Teenage Girl.
I was making comics since I was a young teenager, and I couldn't really study that in college because it wasn't a subject. So I instead studied medical illustration, but I kept doing comics all along, and also made a bunch of short films. This project that this film is represented by is actually, it's going to be a book, and I've been working on it for about 15 years at least. And it's really because part of my process is experience. And so it took all that time to meet people, observe things, and to kind of integrate that into what my story would be. But in the process of researching it, I took so much video, just, for my own use, not thinking I'm going to make a film. So consequently, over the years, technology has changed. I initially just had a little point and shoot and, low resolution stuff. But Aliyah went through and logged all this video. I don't know how many hours there were, Aliyah, but she went through it all. So, and then Natalia saw it all. So they're just as familiar with it as I am. And it was so wonderful to have, even though this is different than the book, this film is very different. It was wonderful to have these new eyes just kind of decipher this like salad of video that had been taken over so many years. And at this point, it's resulted in this film, which we may later expand. But anyway, it's a film in and of itself. Yeah.
Aliyah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how your linguistics background actually works into this story as well?
Yeah, so I'm an independent filmmaker. I'm in my early career. I do want to clarify, I'm a language enthusiast, not a linguist. So I did start studying linguistics, but then I decided I really didn't want to pursue it in the classroom as much as I wanted to kind of explore it on my own terms as I had when I was really young. And I was like, I'll just keep that. So but I was first brought in, if you remember, Phoebe, because you were working on the miniatures. So my introduction to this project was actually through working on miniature sets and trying to support the lighting design. And then it sort of expanded into this other bigger thing. I'm really interested in experimental film production as well, which is the direction we went with this particular project, given all the different places we could have gone with it. So all in all, my background is like, I'm interested in language, I'm interested in film, I'm interested in how they smash together. So,
well, and this sounds like it was a perfect project for you. Natalia, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up with this crew and your co-editing?
Yeah, well, I'm an editor and video artist from South Texas, and I was a big fan of Phoebe's work and actually went to University of Michigan for my graduate studies and had, chose her as my advisor, and was just really, in awe of this project once I learned more about it. My research was working with women in the borderlands, which this project also encompassed. So I came on and just Aliyah and Phoebe had been doing so much work, so I just kind of came on and assisted with some viewing all like years and years in different formats of videos and having Spanish be my first language, some of the translation or some of the interpretation, and really, I felt like really connected to what they were doing, and I was happy. I'm happy to help and happy to be part of the crew.
Tell me about working on a project like this. It's got to be hard and exciting at the same time to be able to work on something that's been going on for so long. Would you say 15 years that this project's been in the making? Are there anything that you are surprised by when you're like going through some of this footage, especially you, Phoebe, when you started this so long ago and you're like, I don't even remember that.
Yeah, no, were lots of surprises, but like I said, I mean, the fun thing about doing this was having new eyes, like smart new eyes, to kind of interpret this video footage, which was really not the primary project that I was working on, but it tells a different story that kind of dovetails with the book. So it's just really interesting to see what these two would make of it, because they were so creative and empathetic. I mean, both of them were also talking to the Chavez Caldera family with me. Like, we were Zooming with them, we were doing all sorts of things which don't even show up in this film, but um, they were so, they really had an uncanny ability to understand this whole story, which was large, and it was wonderful. Yeah, and there's lots of surprises because I don't know if you experienced this, but I hate looking at footage that has me in it. So I never looked at that before, and I'm kind of shocked even now what ended up in the film, but you know, you live with it, right?
Well, Aliyah and Natalia, why don't you tell me what it was like to look at this project with fresh eyes and sort of help Phoebe along the way create what this film is today?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been involved with this since like 2016, which is when I first sort of came in its early iterations. And it can be overwhelming to initially look at that, but I'm pretty literal. I'm very literal, and so I attack it pretty systematically. And so one way to deal with just the sheer volume of footage is to log it, to describe it, um, and from there, all these different stories were coming out that I was like, there were so many directions it could have gone, that's one of the things that continues to stand out to me is how multifaceted it could have been, and that it is. And hopefully in the future, as we, continue developing it, like we picked selections for this particular film. And so in order to navigate what felt really overwhelming, I was like, these stories deserve our attention and our consideration. So you pause and you just take your time. Like that's really what it was. But yeah, I will say that over the years, even though I haven't met most of the people in this film, I know them. I watched them grow up across the footage. I know things about them. And one thing is like, if I ever met them in person, I'll have to keep that in mind that they do not know me. And I know, so I always think about that aspect as well as, am I doing a justice or honor, to their stories because they're trusting us in a way to do something like this. So I keep that in mind as well.
Natalia?
Yeah, and I came on to this project maybe in 2021, so later, and Phoebe and Aliyah had done a lot of legwork in having this footage be digitized and piecing things together. So I felt like when I came in, I was able to also just kind of see the vast amount of media. I mean, there was images, animated postcards Phoebe had made, sequences Aliyah had combined together. So I felt like I was able to bring in the fresh eyes again with because they've been working on this for so long. So and I was instantly a fan of what they were doing. It's such an empathetic way of storytelling and multi languages, and yeah.
Well,
And the music you brought too. I mean, think of that. All
Yeah,
this,
brought in some
yeah.
music. Yeah.
Mm.
well, let's watch the trailer for Dreaming Angel. We're back with Phoebe, Aliyah, and Natalia, the creators of Dreaming Angel. Tell us a little bit about the trailer we just watched and how it teases the 19-minute excerpt, I guess, of a potentially longer film.
It's a snippet of one of the first sequences, or if I'm remembering correctly, that's what it is. Like, it features a few seconds, and then it sort of takes you into the title a little bit. What you watched is sort of the beginnings of what is a dreaming angel. So maybe Natalia has something a bit more evolved to say about what we watched.
Well, I think it also sets in kind of the mood of what kind of film you're watching. Leah did a great kind of soundscape. But yeah, it kind of brings you in this dream mood, a dream narrative where our visuals and our sounds, just like in dreams, aren't totally cohesive, but we're in a world.
Can you tell me about the family and how this family became the inspiration for your book, film, feature film, potentially?
Sure. Well, a long time ago, I went to Juarez, Mexico, with a woman who was editing a book about different injustices against women all over the world. But I was chosen to go to Mexico with her, and I did. And I met a lot of families who had had children, daughters, murdered. And it was a pretty intense experience, 2 weeks of meeting all sorts of different families. But when I met the Chavez Caldera family, they were, well, first, I mean, I can only say wonderful things about them. They were so warm and so open, but also so they didn't have the resources that some of the other families I met did. For example, the other families might have like saved their daughter's clothes or had lots of photographs or all their stuffed animals or something like this. But when I visited the Chavez Calderas, I mean, there were 12 people living in a one-room house, basically, and they had saved nothing of their daughter. They didn't have any photos of her except one photo that had been used for the missing poster. And, you know, all because there were so many kids, her clothing had been like passed on to others and consumed. And so, and also from all the descriptions that I got from the family, she was very quiet, very beautiful, very quiet, very shy. And it, you know, so the number of anecdotes I got about her was actually very small because, you know, they could talk about all the other kids in the family, but Maria Elena just wanted to stay home. You know, if everyone else went out, she would say, I'll stay home and take care of the baby. I'll do this because she craved some time without all the noise. She wanted to be alone, to clean up, to just feel like, you know, she was just there. And so she became, in a sense, kind of a ghost because I was just trying to chase her, like figure out who this person was. I mean, that's why I chose her because it was so enigmatic. And in fact, she did, you know, reappear as a ghost in the dreams of her sister, and her mother repeatedly dreamed about her. I even dreamed about her. So that's where the title, The Dreaming Angel, came from, actually. It's just kind of the impossibility and possibility of knowing someone that you never knew. You know them through other avenues. You try to know them through other people, through other people's dreams, through retracing where they walked, you know, and slowly you're able to get some sense of this person. And in the end, you realize that, you know, this is humanity, you know. It's only very recently that we've left traces of individual lives, you know, since the advent of writing and then books and then photographs. But but it's been slow progress, and we still have this curiosity about those who are gone, and indeed this love for those who are gone, and for the, the tenuousness of life and the beauty of it. Yeah.
You saying this sort of makes me think of like, when you walk through a cemetery and you see like some gravestones that are really old, and then you wonder about when people pass, they think like, will people remember me? Like I remember when my grandmother passed, and this like always makes me emotional, and she says, remember me, like I wouldn't. And like would people pass, and then all of the people that knew them pass, no one remembers them anymore. And that's like sort of sad to think about, that like you want people to remember you, but then like all these generations are gone, and then you're gone essentially. Like you're just gone. So
I
I
think,
feel what you're doing is like you're making her live on forever.
yeah, in a way. And also, I think, there is that saying, you only live as long as the people who remember you, or
Hmm.
something like that. Um, but as a matter of fact, I think we still continue to live on in kind of a more diffuse sense, because our influence, it reverberates through time, as does the people who came before us. So even if we have no knowledge of their names or who they were or where they lived, they're still part of our DNA, part of our behavior. But we just can't put a name to them anymore.
Hmm.
Yeah. Sorry about your grandmother.
I mean, she's
Yeah.
been gone for, like 14 years now, but it's just like, how you feel that connection to someone, it's always there. You can,
Yeah, it
when you mourn someone, it's different. It changes, it evolves over time.
does. But sometimes you could still hear their voice.
Oh,
Something
yeah.
like,
It's funny because you mentioned this dreaming angel aspect, and it's almost like she's part of me. I dream for her, but she's also here in my waking life too. So, what does the family feel about this project and you creating this legacy for their daughter that was lost?
well, I think they're anxious for me to finish the book. Um, but they, I'm not sure what they'll think of the film. They have not seen it yet. And in fact, you guys, we should talk about this. We were trying to really, I mean, they knew, of course, that we were filming them and this could be this, but, and we're trying to do justice to everyone who was in the film. And we only finished it, what, like a week, 2 weeks ago? Really? Yeah. And now that it's in the film festival, I guess it's time to show it. So check back in. Check back in. Yeah.
So,
But they've seen some of the footage. They just haven't seen it all together. Yeah.
so initially it was more like, okay, you're going to make a book, you're getting video footage for your inspiration for your book later on, but there was always this little potential that you could make something into the video footage that you had.
Right. Right.
And so then you guys just finished this, you said a couple weeks ago, but you think that there could be a feature length down the road too? Yeah, because you have a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential because of the stories there. I mean, you really said that all very, very well. Like, I totally agree with everything you mentioned. The other aspect of this story is the way her legacy affects their lives today. So a part of that is also in the film, just how they navigate everyday life. I think sometimes we think about mourning as a sense of we're carrying bricks with us. And I think that might be true for some people, but for some people it manifests differently. And this is one of those stories where there's so many people navigating it differently that that's really why there's going to be so many like chapters, because that there's a diversity in their experiences that I feel really deserve to be seen and shared.
Natalia, did you want to add on?
Um, Well, I think, yeah, Phoebe's life and the family's life is also so intertwined at times too. I mean, we were Zooming with Martin, Nena's brother, the whole time. And yeah, I mean, I think this is, before I came onto the project years back, they came to visit Phoebe in Ann Arbor, and yeah, she also helped one of them go to beauty school. So I feel like it's almost not like home movies, but at first there's definitely like, she's in the space and, recording this family. And then at one point, this all kind of became like home footage where you see Phoebe's daughters and then a sister and Martin. So yeah, I think it's an interesting mix of both detailing like a story, but also it becoming part of your life. And yeah, I'm sure Martin will be thrilled. I mean, he's seen, yeah, cuts of some of the stuff we've been working on.
Do you
And then,
mind asking what happened to her? Is that part of the story?
Well, yeah, she was murdered, probably by a suitor, um, in June of 2000. So it was a long time ago, but, and someone has been arrested and served a term in prison. But there's still questions about his culpability and the involvement of other people. And for a long time, there was a question about whether or not the DNA that they got from the body was actually accurately assessed. And the parents, didn't really believe that the daughter was dead. There was just a long period of uncertainty. And
Hmm.
so it kind of stretched out the pain for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a film that isn't really focused on the act, though. It really is focused on the missing spot in their lives.
Yeah.
Well, and
Exactly.
yeah, Phoebe, you mentioned earlier that, there wasn't a lot of her left. They only had one picture. They had gotten rid of her clothes, but then you're like creating this memorial for her in a way that they couldn't give her initially. And that's really special.
Yeah, no, I hope they see it that way. And indeed, I mean, I think she's affected all three of us, even though none of us have ever met her. Um, I've got her picture on my wall right up there. So yeah.
How did it evolve into an experimental film? You mentioned you wanted it to be Aliyah. You mentioned you wanted it to be experimental because I think nowadays we're seeing like a transition of like the way we watch stuff, and experimental film is becoming more normal. Where like I feel like obviously when the film festival started 62 years ago, it was not the norm. But I think like modern filmmaking is sort of transitioning into this more experimental filmmaking where it's more accepted by the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, it was a natural, I think, direction to take it based on the original intent of the footage wasn't that someday we're going to make this into a film. And so you get access to their thoughts, to their homes, to just what are they paying attention to right now? The kids are jumping on the bed and someone's filming that. It really felt natural, and it also really felt like life, the way you might hop from task to task to task. But then also it felt like dreams, the way your dreams might meld together in one moment. And sometimes it feels like a confessional where you're just digesting your day and you're reflecting on what's happened in a particular part of your life, or you're celebrating a milestone of one of your kids. So it felt supernatural. And by that, I mean like natural. It felt right to approach it in that way versus, perhaps more common narrative filmmaking structures that I think we could have done that. I just think the story speaks more clearly, actually, through the experimental framing that we chose.
Natalia, as an editor, how does that affect your work? Are you used to editing experimental film, or was it something different for you?
I would say my own work is experimental, but I work commercially as a editor, so it definitely allowed me to have freedom of technique. And also, I mean, just the array of media we had, I feel like it was all so important to the narrative. So I feel like working in an experimental format allowed us to combine and collage multimedia aspects. iMovie footage of Phoebe's like computer diary with Martin's camcorder confessional style talking with photos of the kids growing up. And since the story deals so much with grief as well, and that's such a liminal kind of state, or it's a space where yeah, nothing is really certain. I feel like the media really reflected that.
Well, we are almost out of time, but I would like each of you to sort of tell everyone why people should support festivals like the Ann Arbor Film Festival as a filmmaker, as an artist, and as a viewer.
I think festivals are a space for community, both for viewers and filmmakers and organizers. And it's a curated experience of contemporary films, maybe, some classic, experimental, whatever the festival is doing. Specifically, Ann Arbor Film Fest, I feel like, as the longest running experimental festival, it's both educational and a space to experiment. So it's exciting as like an attendee and as a filmmaker.
Your question was, why should people support
Yeah.
film festivals? Because film and contemporary film is really a reflection of society in a moment, in a year. And that is essential to us continuing to reflect on who we are as a society, as individuals. And so it's a beautiful thing. It should be supported, right?
Aliyah?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you both said. On the other end, I think it's a great way for creators to transmit the stories they want to tell that maybe otherwise wouldn't be seen by folks. And so I think people should support so that creators and artists can be inspired and empowered to get their stories out there.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you all for being a guest on the show and talking about this project that sounds beautiful.
Thank you, Dana.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for having us.
And thank
What-
you, Ann Arbor Film Festival. Yeah.
To watch this and other CTN series, visit youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor. And remember to like, subscribe, and share. I'm Dana Denha for Let's Watch with the Ann Arbor Film Festival.